August 22nd. Everybody please stand. I'd like to make a motion to approve our prior minutes of July 25th for our regular town board meeting. May I have a second? Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. We are having a presentation tonight, so I guess that has something to do with it.
We're going to watch TV, Joe, is that okay?
Is that better? I have a couple of announcements. Town Hall will be closed on Monday, September 5th for Labor Day, the observance of Labor Day. Our town pool is open until 6 p.m. on Monday, the 5th. Closes at 6 p.m. on Labor Day. Alice, our beloved rec director, is resigning. She's gotten a full-time job, so we will be looking for a new rec director. She's done a fantastic job, and we'll miss her. We got word from the state today that our equalization rate has been approved at 100%. So even with the issues we have in our assessments this year, for next year, we're at 100% equalization. So that's good. September 7th is the last day for anyone in Rhinebeck to comment on the proposed Coast Guard plan to add 17 mooring sites between Yonkers and here. 5 of which will be right here between Rhinebeck and Kingston and Rhinebeck and Socas. We have a link on our town website. If it's not up now, it will be by tomorrow. I encourage everybody to follow the links, to read about it, and to weigh in. And let it be known. We've passed a resolution calling for a public hearing. I believe the rest of the board will support going forward with calls not to allow private tankers to use our public waters as an unpaid parking lot. Any other announcements?
Yeah, this is the last Saturday of the month coming up, so brush and leaves can be
Anybody else? We have a public hearing, a local law amending Chapter A-130 of the Town of Rhinebeck Code with regard to the composition, appointment, and terms of the Recreation Advisory Committee. Does anybody want to speak about this? Any public comments? I'd like to make a motion to close all of the hearings.
You have some review.
Oh, sure.
I have a letter.
I'm sorry, can you come to my phone? I can't hear.
I have sent a letter in, I agreed to the town clerk last Wednesday on the meeting, and I want to read that as much as
Could you introduce yourself, give your name?
my name is Shirley Carolina. I'm from Saugerties,
Saugerties.
but I grew up in Dutchess County. I spent a lot of time in Rhinebeck. I had the honor and pleasure of knowing Being friends with both Linda and Mr. Ray for 25 years. I have worked with Linda on various projects over the years. Linda is hardworking, loyal, competent, and caring professional. But over the past 10 years or more, she has worked endlessly, organizing and planning a team murder for Really for Life to find a cure for cancer. In doing so, she has continually worked for various other teams to help them participate in the movement also. Her sole reason for doing this is to help others suffering from cancer because she has a servant's heart. I have a little bit of a cold, sorry. Liz has 2 beautiful children whom she adores. She is involved in all of their activities and is a great mom. Linda is passionate about everything she becomes involved in. Her passion and motivation is a tremendous benefit to the community that she serves. She brings with her many resources, talents, and gifts and experiences that she's able to share. Furthermore, she is very thorough while researching any situation and any issue that comes up. During the town board's meetings video, I watched Linda being attacked and harassed by board members. During home meetings, she remained calm, subdued, and professional. She was treated like a criminal on trial and is a complete misrepresentation. Sorry, my colleagues. And is a complete misrepresentation of her character. Linda was silenced many times, disregarded, and personally attacked. Through it all, Linda remained focused on her children, the children she was serving. The board's new legislation, which they did away with Linda's volunteer position, the board had its own agenda, which didn't do what's best for the consumers. Unfortunately, the harassment of Linda did not stop at the meeting. But please contacted her at home regarding recreation flyers left on cars. Being a mom, I asked myself, what was her crime? She tried to make sure that campers were provided with protection from the sun while they were attending camp. Is it unreasonable? No. I concluded the board obviously did not want to spend the money on the umbrellas. My beautiful friend was a volunteer in the community, and she donated her time and energy to have the board do their best for the community. It is not acceptable that Linda was removed from a position that she was voted in by the state community. Furthermore, it's unconscionable that she has been sent by this community, not the whole board. And this attack is against her personally and professionally. I heard in the video, it was said by someone who kept saying it's not anything personal. But as I watched the video, it really wasn't. It felt really personal to me as I watched it. I'm disheartened that the board is passing a law to fire a volunteer. This promotes censorship and then stated that it's something personal. In closing, let me reconsider your position. Linda Murray is a valuable asset to any community and should be treated respectfully, as anyone else to be. In a world struggling to recruit volunteers, it's really perplexing to me to see someone purposely fired from standing up for this room. I say this because I volunteer. My life has been a volunteer. To watch that and to see Linda just attacked, it's very disconcerting and very upsetting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Let me ask you this, before we talk about resolution number 8.
Yes, just to make it clear, this law has been adopted already. This is an amendment to the law. And the amendment that we're adopting tonight says that, quote, members of this law has been passed. We voted on it 2 meetings ago?
Yeah.
What we're voting on tonight is an amendment to this law that says members of the Recreation Committee shall serve at the pleasure of the town board for their appointed terms, which they already did. A member of the Recreation Committee who misses 3 consecutive meetings without just cause, fails to actively participate in functions of the Recreation Committee, fails to fulfill his or her duties, or who exhibits disruptive behavior may be removed by a resolution of the town board upon written charges presented by the town board and a private or public hearing thereon. That's what this amendment is for tonight. Anything else, John?
Yeah, the comment I have on the language is the end of it, we talk about a private or public hearing, but it doesn't say who makes that decision. What?
It's up to the applicant.
I can't hear you.
It's up to whoever's being charged.
Well, okay, you say, but we should have that language.
Well, you can make a motion to
Okay.
amend this if you like.
Yeah, that I think we should amend it to at least say whose choice it is. And I gather it's the person who is being removed, taking that choice.
Okay? Thanks.
Or maybe it just comes out. Maybe I think there was something like that. Maybe it just got dropped. So maybe just add something into like to be determined by, what's the language, by the accused or the committee member? The committee member?
Person to be removed.
To be determined by the person to be removed?
Yeah.
Well, but that's kind of predetermining removal. I think the idea is that there's a hearing before
Well,
and then the
but-
resolution would come later. I think maybe just to say to be determined by the committee member makes it clear,
By the recreation.
by the recreation committee member.
Are you making a motion to, I don't think we can we amend this?
If you amend it now, you're gonna have to continue the public hearing for the next meeting. Can't
So
pass it.
I don't think it's that necessary. I think it's kind of clear. I mean,
Well, I don't think it's clear at all. I mean, it's ambiguous. We'll have a, 2 years from now, and 10 years from now, none of us are here, who's going to remember it? I don't know, we have to extend the public hearing.
I'm fine with it as is. Joe wants to change it, Elaine.
I mean, personally, I think it's clear enough. I wouldn't have picked that out myself, but I figured if it was easy enough to just make a quick change that wouldn't create unnecessary.
It stays as it is.
Why does it have to have another public hearing?
Because it's a local law, and if we change it, it needs another public
If you
hearing.
amend it, it needs to relay on the desks tonight, and then you have to continue the public hearing for the next meeting.
I would amend it.
Linda, did you have a comment?
Sure. Do you want me to comment now? I just find, I didn't come up here to say what I'm about to say, but since Mr. Gill pointed this issue out, I'll try to tie it into what I was planning on commenting, which was, I'm sorry, first of all, my name's Linda Murray. Thank you, Shirley, for your comments about my work with the American Cancer Society. The whole removal part is relevant, and this whole process has been disconcerting for me in particular, as you well know, which maybe some of the people here don't know, because of how I was removed. And since I'm a term appointment, the rule is that term appointments, that committee members who serve a fixed term, like it is with a rec committee, the procedure for their removal is the same as that for officers, and that's Robert's Rules of Orders, page 497, the 11th edition. Term appointments can only be removed from office for cause, that is, neglect of duty in office or misconduct in accordance with the procedures described in page 63, which is an investigating committee must be appointed, charges preferred, and a formal trial must be held. And that's been my issue since the outset, that you removed me, and there was no basis for removal. You just didn't like that I was demanding answers from Mr. Scheer about shade. So this whole process has been corrupt. I should have had a hearing, written charges, etc. But the problem was that you had nothing other than me challenging Mr. Scheer. So instead you spend what, $5,000? How much money to create a local law to remove me? If you had just followed the process and just dealt with the fact that as a board, just because you sit on this dais, you still have to answer to your community. And I was the strong voice in the room. Now, Mr. Scheer, unfortunately, he's not here to respond. However, I mean, he's saying that I was more challenging than people in a Fortune 500 committee? Are you kidding me? I was asking about shade for children. And answers needed to be responded to. So instead of giving me an answer, you created a local law. And I mean, we're minimizing the fact that this is an amendment, but in reality, Supervisor Spinzia, you knew that night it shouldn't have been passed. Because the lawyer was saying, this isn't the law that I thought was on the table. It shouldn't have been passed, and you knew that. but you passed it anyway. And now Mr. Gelb's proposing more changes, and we're just trying to push it through. This is completely personal. You want to push it through again and spend some more money from the taxpayer? Well, that's why you sit in the position you sit in. In any event, my point in coming here tonight was to say, who's at the helm of this ship? I was a volunteer. I was one of the most productive people on this committee. And because I asked questions, you passed a law to remove me rather than following the proper procedure. And here it is, Mr. Gelb is pointing out how that procedure is questionable, and we're going to push it through again. I don't know if, chances are you're not going to listen to me. You're going to pass the law. I'm removed. I'm not volunteering on this committee anymore. You had your little selection process of handpicking volunteers, and that was beautiful because we sat on that committee for more than 2 years, just 2 of us. And all of a sudden it rained volunteers, and now the committee's full. Was there a notice to ask people to volunteer? Or, as the resolution says, people who expressed an interest? It's also covert. It's covert. If you were just honest from the beginning, we wouldn't be standing here and just answer the questions.
Anybody want to speak?
At the end of the day, I'm so glad the kids had shade, but I know that had I not dug my heels in, they would have never had shade for that summer camp. Thank you.
Anybody want to respond?
Just that local law changes the functions of the committee. That's my understanding, that the existing provision said the committee directs the rec director, and we want to take that away from the committee. The committee is just advisory to the town board. So we do want to change the structure.
I feel like we talked about all that too at the last meeting. I mean, I almost feel like there's so much I'd like to say, but I think it's pointless because we had a very robust discussion about this, and the plans to restructure the rec committee have been in place for a long time. And a lot of outreach was done for a while trying to build a committee. I mean, we were fortunate enough to get a senior citizen right here at another board meeting who volunteered, and our volunteer base began to build. We got 1 volunteer from you. I mean, it's something we've been working on for a while. I said right from the start when we discussed this last time, there were 2 very separate issues going on, and it's just not true to say that this was all done just to attack you. I mean, geez, like all of our energy is going to go into changing, creating a local law just to get rid of you. I mean, this is something we've had in place for such a long time. Now, were there problems on the committee? Yeah, there were problems. You know what those problems are. We know what those problems are. But that had nothing. That has nothing to do, though, with what our decision a long time ago, before these problems ever surfaced, to restructure the committee. I just feel like it's really false to say that. It's very accusatory, very false. I mean, the language is really strong and harmful and just wrong.
It isn't wrong, Elaine. It is so far from wrong. I don't know how you can ignore the facts and see what it is, the painting that you're trying to paint. I mean, what you're doing is complete, like, acting 101. I mean, I can't believe that you're saying this. Are you at the same meeting in the past 6 months of what happened? How was it that I didn't even know that the rec committee was being abolished when I was on it for 5 years? And the only reason I found out was because I pulled up the agenda the night before the meeting, and I was like, oh my goodness, they're abolishing the rec committee, and this was going on for years? Now that's a
Since I've been on the
surprise.
board, there's been talk about restructuring the rec committee.
So do you think it would make sense?
There's a
Since
process. It takes a long time. That's something we were building.
And it just happened to come on the heels of me asking about shade for the children. And that the law was pushed through when the attorney's sitting there saying, well, this is a mistake.
You know, you misinterpret that, you're misrepresenting what he said. Yes, he did. He wrote both those laws, and there was a lot of shuffling of paper and a lot of changes being made at the last minute. That's why when he read it, in his mind, he was reading the old one and didn't even realize because there was so much paper. That was just a simple mistake. That's why we came back and
A
corrected it.
simple mistake.
Yes, that's why
The
we
law
came
was
back and
filed with the
corrected it.
Department of State.
That's right. and we've
After
gone
he
through that
advised
process
not to
twice.
file it and not to pass it, Elaine. And now here we are 2 months later. 2 months later, amending the exact law that you passed.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Right, exactly, don't answer. Better not to answer.
It's just no point.
I'll make a motion to close.
I'd like to
Is
speak.
the truth? No, we're closing the public.
I'd like to speak.
No, I'm sorry. Public, may I have a motion?
I can't close the meeting when you have public who wants to speak.
You have 3 minutes. Go ahead, 3 minutes.
So I truly hope, just given some opposition, that that's not the route that the town of Rhinebeck takes to address opposition. I'm Richard Murray, I'm sorry. I am a volunteer in this town. I'm on the planning board. I volunteer with sports and kids. And I hope that statement, you have 3 minutes and we're closing it, which is totally against all the laws of meeting minutes. And this, God bless. So, let me just say this, Mr. Gell, thank you for reading it and considering the law that we're about to pass. At least, even if you vote for it, thank you for considering what it is you're passing and not just blindly, ignorantly passing it. And I'm sorry,
See,
but
it's
you
your
haven't been on there long enough.
It's your offensiveness that makes people say they want to close it, because it's just offensive.
Yes, we
But
Well, people think we're
you're
like,
being
why can't
very
we have a
offensive
civil conversation?
to everyone involved in this process by sitting there and talking as an authority when you've only been part of the board for a couple of years, and you're talking like this has been this big thing. The fact that you didn't notify committee members that you're changing is sad.
The fact that we didn't, there was public record of us having.
I wish you all well, but again,
I know.
Mr. Gell, thank you for at least reading it and considering what it is you're going to propose to pass. Thank you.
I know.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing unless anybody else would like to add anything. Any further discussion? Do we want to vote on this or we want to revise it?
We'll revise it, we keep the hearing open longer.
Yeah, I would revise it to fix the last part. So I would vote against it. I think we ought to fix the last part and not leave it ambiguous as to who makes that decision. That's my position.
We're closing. I'm fine with it staying as is. I think we can reach a consensus with whoever we're dealing with, and we can.
You know, I would have been fine with making it more clear. I felt like it was clear enough, but I would have been fine with making it more clear, but it seems to like hold a public hearing open over it. It just doesn't make any sense. I feel like it's clear enough. It's, you know, a private or public hearing would, you know, would have to be determined by the recreation committee member. It says presented by the town board. If it's being presented by the town board, it can only be presented to the other party. That's why I think it's clear enough. That's the only reason why I think it's clear enough. I would have, like I said, to make it more clear would have been fine, but to hold a public hearing open for it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I'll make a motion for a resolution, this is tab number 8, 2016-208, adopting local law number to be determined of 2016, entitled, quote, a local law amending chapter A-130 of the Town of Rhinebeck Code with regard to the composition, appointment, and terms of the Recreation Advisory Committee. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? By roll call, Elaine Fernandez.
Aye.
Ed Roberts.
Aye.
Joe Gill.
No.
Elizabeth Spezia, yes, the motion passes. We have a presentation tonight from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservancy. We have Sue, I can't pronounce your last name. Dinzel here to talk to us about deer overpopulation. Thank you, Sue, for coming.
Thank you.
It's very great to remember I'm based in the Albany office of DEC. My focus is on helping communities around the state address issues with overabundant deer. And Jonathan Russell, who is your big game biologist in Region 3, is also here. He's more familiar with the local area, and if you get to the point of wanting to do something that would require permits from us, he'd be the person that you would communicate with.
I'm sorry, can you say his last name for us again, Jonathan?
Russell.
And you're from Albany too, Jonathan?
No, I'm actually at New Paltz
New
office. Yep.
I was asked to come talk to the board because some residents have raised concerns about deer overabundance and the impact on their property. And so the board wanted to learn more about the issue and about what it might take for the community to take some action. So I'm going to give some context for that. I'll start with just a couple of relevant facts about deer biology. White-tailed deer are highly adaptable species that use a variety of different habitats, but they do best where different habitat types meet, which is known as edge. So where forests are interspersed with fields and open areas, they find the most to eat in those areas. They're grazers and browsers, which means that they eat both leafy green stuff and brown woody stuff. And they have a very high reproductive rate. Does average 2 fawns per year and can have a reproductive lifespan of more than 10 years, which adds up to a lot of babies. Bucks can fertilize many different does in the course of one mating season, which means that the number of reproductive does is the key to whether populations are growing and how fast they're growing. And if food is plentiful, as it often is in residential communities and suburban areas, and areas like Rhinebeck, and mortality rates are low, which again is often a component of suburban and residential areas, then deer populations can actually double every 2 to 3 years. Deer populations have in fact been growing steadily in New York as a whole, largely due to the increase in the suburban and residential areas that provide such excellent deer habitat. And in fact, they were growing for the 50 years before this graph starts too. At the point where this graph started back in the 1950s, there were already problems cropping up with deer overabundance, particularly in the southern parts of the state. People were raising concerns about crop damage, damage to landscaping. So you can imagine how much those problems have increased and worsened since then. The problems that tend to come up as strong concerns in residential communities are things like deer vehicle collisions, the possibility that high deer densities can lead to increases in tick-borne disease such as Lyme disease, and damage to crops and landscaping plants. And what you see in the bottom picture there is known as a browse line. That's what occurs when deer eat everything from about nose height on a deer on down to the ground. And that browse line doesn't just occur in landscaping, it also occurs in natural areas, which is a problem that is not so widely recognized that is actually a brewing ecological disaster. The picture on the top shows a forest with high deer impacts, and you can see that that same browse line is there. Everything from about 4 feet down is gone, it's eaten. That means that an entire layer of the forest, the understory, is gone, and that has cascading impacts throughout the forest ecosystem. One of the most concerning implications of this is what it means for the future of the forest, because as you see in the bottom picture, a healthy forest has a lot of young trees in that understory layer, saplings and seedlings. And when the old trees in the canopy die, the young trees grow up to take their place. But as that layer is gone, when the canopy trees die, the forest may just disappear. The process of tree replacement is called regeneration, and the Nature Conservancy surveyed the regeneration throughout New York several years ago and found that it was particularly bad in this area of the state, in the southeast. It forests are just not regenerating because deer densities are so high. So if deer densities are not brought down in a couple of generations, forests around here could just disappear. DEC is trying to address these problems on a broad scale by monitoring forest health, working to find ways to bring deer density down at regional scales. But we're limited in how much we can do because the majority of land in New York is privately owned, and our tool for manipulating deer densities is hunting. What we can do is basically make hunting more effective, encourage increased opportunities for hunters, but landowners have control over whether hunting happens on their land and to what extent it happens and whether hunters focus on does or bucks. So landowners are really in control of what happens with deer populations. And that fact, plus the fact that residential areas make such excellent deer habitat, is one reason why a number of communities around the state have developed deer management programs, because their residents are experiencing problems such as the residents here, and they decided that they need to take action. So I'm going to go through what's involved in developing such a program. We think of it as a cycle, because deer management is not something that you can just do once and fix the problem and it's over. It's an ongoing commitment. It's a long-term action. And it starts with deciding what the problems are that the community is experiencing, how bad they are, and whether there's a general feeling that something needs to be done about the deer-related issues at a community level. Once that decision's been made, the next step is to define objectives. What is it you want to accomplish? The objectives should relate to the problems. So if you're concerned about, for example, deer vehicle collisions, and there are currently 40 per year in the town, you might decide that you want to get them down to 10 per year. That would be a level that the community feels is acceptable. Picking an objective based on the number of deer in the community is not a productive way to go, because for one thing, it's very hard to count deer accurately. For another thing, there's no way to decide up front what is an appropriate number of deer to be in a certain area. The issue is not the number of deer per se, it's what the deer is doing. So that's what you would want to focus on, the impacts that they're creating, and then once you get those to a level that's considered acceptable and sustainable, then your deer population is at a sustainable level. Once you've decided where you want to go, then you would start thinking about how you want to get there. And if you get to this point, I or somebody else could certainly come back and give you another presentation focusing more on the specific options that are available for management, the pros and cons and implications of various methods. Typically, you wouldn't just select one method, you would select a variety of different approaches and come at the problem from a number of different angles, because that's how you would be most effective. And this process of selecting methods that you want to use is often the most difficult part for any community, because people tend to be have very different opinions about deer, about deer-related issues, what should be done about deer, and people can be very, very passionate and very emotional, and so it can often be difficult to arrive at a community consensus about what should be done. Once those decisions have been made, you move to the implementation phase, figuring out exactly how you're going to put those methods into practice, and then putting them into practice. And these are some of the aspects that you could consider in developing that plan. Then the final stage is evaluation, assessing how it went. Was the implementation smooth? Did things go as expected? Did you accomplish what you had in mind? Are you closer to your objectives than you were when you started? And so then you go back through the cycle. It's a continual assessment and revision and improvement so that you can ultimately come up with a solution that works for the community and is effective and people are satisfied. Throughout this process, both communication and education are very important components. And particularly at the start, education is often the principal activity. Often a community will start by forming a committee of some sort to take point on this process. And their task is generally to educate themselves and then to share what they've learned with the community about things like deer biology, how deer live and die in the wild, and what determines whether populations grow or decline. That can help you assess the different methods you're considering. You would want a strong understanding of the local impacts, and that often involves surveying residents to find out what their experiences are, and maybe where impacts are worse, possibly also doing an ecological assessment to look at ecological impacts. You would, of course, want a strong understanding of the different management options, and then of the process itself, how the decision-making process and the planning process works. And throughout this initial phase, the formation of the committee and the decision-making process, I would encourage broad public involvement, outreach to the entire community, inclusiveness of all points of view, all perspectives, all segments of the community, to make sure that everyone has a chance to add their views to the discussion, participate in the decision-making process, and those that they've been listened to and considered by everybody else involved. That will strengthen the process and the product, assuming, of course, that everybody can maintain a certain level of maturity and respect for each other and for the process. And so in forming, if you decide to form a committee, you would want to take that into consideration in deciding who's on it, because you can't expect that everybody's going to be happy with what you decide to do, no matter what it is. But everybody should be able to agree that the process for making a decision was valid, and that whatever decision you made is supported by the majority of the community. So you would want to have people leading the effort who are committed to making that possible. So that's pretty much where I'm going to end. I just want to say that I know there are residents who are concerned about what's happening on their land, and obviously the community process takes a long time. So if you want to lower deer density on your property and you would like to take some action on your own, you can talk to me or to Jonathan afterwards, and we'd be happy to give you some guidance on what steps you can take. And even if you only have a couple of acres, you probably have enough for a volunteer tree stand. So if you want to do something to lower deer densities, you can do that. But I would definitely encourage consideration of action at the community level, because the wider the area you act on, the more effective you're going to be. And although you may not think that the problem is all that bad right now, depending, I don't even know what the situation is here, but I would encourage you to be proactive, because you can expect that things are going to get worse. Deer are so good at
So we can reach out to you for further help if we want to start a committee?
Absolutely.
The big concern, and we've heard this from the large landowners and from, the people at Keepers of Fern Brook Forest, is that the deer population here is probably, 100 times more than what the area can support. And there is no undergrowth anymore. If you walk around the forest, there's no undergrowth. So the forests will die. It's Lyme disease, it's the lack of regeneration, and we do have traffic issues. Of course, I'd like to lower that. I don't know that that's as huge an issue as the Lyme and the lack of forest regeneration. I have to check within the county for the traffic stats, but that's why we asked you to come. The concern with spreading of Lyme and the forest being wiped out.
Right, and Lyme is a huge concern. Unfortunately, I can't assure you that
No, there's
medical
other
deer
mammals,
density
yeah.
is going to reduce the incidence of Lyme, because there is really good evidence for that.
There's
at
other
this point.
mammals that carry the ticks.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a relationship, but it's a complex relationship, so you can't be confident
So-
that you're going to be able to affect that.
If we were to form a committee, if there were people who wanted to do this, we could reach out to you to get more.
Yeah, I'd be happy to continue to work with you and advise you on that, absolutely.
Assuming Lyme is the.
Hold on, Joe, hold on.
I just wanted to ask Susan to explain to me that there are ways that you can work individually to do this, if you have, you get together with your neighbors, if you have an area of 100 acres. And could you explain that to us?
Oh, well, I was talking specifically about a program called DMAP, which is a Deer Management Assistance Program. But there are a number of different options, but that's something that will, if you have 100 acres or more, you can, or you can group together with other landowners to have an area of 100 acres. You can get extra deer tags, essentially, with permission to kill more deer than.
So that's a hunting issue.
Yeah, yeah. It's for use for hunters.
Can that be contiguous land, or can you have a road going through it? Like I have 9G in front of my house. It's very dangerous because there are deer signs up. It's a kind of treacherous spot on 9G when it comes to the overpopulation. They do lost their property.
I believe it. But yeah, I mean, roads,
So I can get my neighbors to join in 100 acres, and at least extra tag.
sure,
It has to be contiguous.
that's right.
So, yeah, it has to be contiguous. When we say 100 acres, that's for forest regeneration. That's the minimum western quarter, yeah.
Meaning 9G cuts it in half.
What's that?
9G would cut it in half, making it non-contiguous.
No, we still
No,
continue
that's-
that contiguous property, yeah. What we don't want is something that's, totally unattached, quarter-mile away, keeping the property.
Right, okay.
So Jonathan, the 100 acres, you can get more deer tags within the 100 acres?
Yeah, so there are two categories for the DMAP program, one of which is forest management. And to get those additional tags, you need to show that deer have any negative impact on forest regeneration. You need to provide a forest management plan with your application.
To
and
you,
usually-
to the DEC?
Correct, yeah. And usually a forester can help you do that. He'll assess, what kind of species you're growing, what stage they're at. And he can even advise, suggest how many deer you should move off the property to improve the situation. And
So-
then, yeah, we could,
So the way to start this is through proving that the trees are under attack?
yeah, like I said, there's multiple categories for DMAP, if that's the program.
Is it D for deer or E for?
Yeah, it actually
Yeah,
stands for
D
Deer
for deer.
Management Assistance Program.
DMAP.
Sorry, yeah.
Are there planting stuff in there too? I mean, some people are uptight about putting $50,000 worth of plantings in and then deer can just eat them. Is that a consideration or no?
For those, no, typically not for that program.
Okay.
Well, what about if you planted trees to work on the carbon dioxide problem? And that was your whole purpose for doing that, and it's a secondary thing whether it needs your property look nice or not. And every one of those trees has no bottom. Is that what
I hear you there.
Well, I mean, assuming that they're native trees and that they,
No, not all of them are, but mostly everything.
I saw one
probably
where,
that wouldn't be considered as a forest regeneration issue if they're not
But
native.
it's not the same carbon dioxide mitigation.
Yeah, that's not really something that's.
Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question. It's very hard to hear, so if people could go to the microphone, because I assume people listening in would really like to hear. But the question I had, two questions I had, I heard something about deer tags. What is that and what does it do?
That's a tag that allows a hunter to kill a deer legally. So, for regular recreational hunting seasons, hunters who buy a license get a certain number of tags. They're allowed to kill a certain number of bucks and does. But if you enter one of these programs, then you get essentially permission to kill more deer on your property.
Other than hunting, is there any other way to reduce the deer population if you're worried about Lyme disease?
Well, again, the evidence for being able to affect Lyme disease by reducing deer populations is not strong. And
Let's assume you
the
believe.
evidence suggests that you would have to get deer populations down very low to be able to have an impact on Lyme disease. So you're unlikely to be able to do that with anything other than killing a lot of deer. So if Lyme disease is the issue, there really isn't any other approach that we would consider that has to do with deer.
Just one side question, in a bullet on fencing. Are there guidelines in fencing to restrict deer from certain areas that you may not want them to travel?
There's a lot of different types of, you can find a lot of products on the internet and a lot of advice about ways to fence. It depends how big an area you want to fence, whether it's individual plants or a large area. But typically, if you want the deer not to be able to jump over it, you need to be at least 8 feet high or crawl over it. Yeah, that's another
Fencing, that's very effective.
So it can be expensive depending on how much you want to fence, but it can be very effective.
How high should a fence be?
At least 8 feet is the general recommendation. The final thing I wanted to say is please don't feed deer. I don't know if anybody here does, but some people do. They think they're helping, but they're not helping. They're just making a problem worse.
I just had a quick
It's
question.
also illegal, so.
I just had a quick question. One of your charts, you showed the deer population, and then like in 2006, there was a significant decrease. What was it, were the hunters better that season, or was it?
I wasn't here
And then it
then,
started going back up again.
but I believe there was a very hard winter
Oh.
that year, or maybe 2 hard winters in a row. Plus, I believe that DEC was making an effort to try to reduce deer densities at the same time, so the two things came together and had a
Just wanted to
significant impact. So here's some links for more information if anybody's interested in more information, and you can certainly come up and talk to me or to Jonathan afterwards, and we can go into more detail on this and send you these links for more information.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I should have known if you said that. That's what I'm going. That was a very moment in time. Well, thanks. Listen, you know, you've got to come to us every town board meeting in the area, and God bless you.
Okay. Sue, thanks again. Thank you. I mean, we can continue talking.
Yeah, I think it's a good beginning.
Thanks for setting it up, Elaine. Committee and liaison reports. I know Ed has something. Go ahead, Ed. Speak up.
Okay. On August 9th, I met with members of the Rhinebeck Rotary Club Service Committee at the Star Library. Other groups represented there were aside from the town board, the trustees of St. Peter's Evangelical Lutheran Church, better known as the Stone Church. The town historian was there, the Museum of Rhinebeck History was represented, Whitman Resource Center was there, Hudson River Heritage and Rhinebeck Historical Society. Now, the whole point of the meeting was really, to start with, to give a brief historical background to the stone church, the cemetery, and the little school there, too. Discussing, then focused on Rotary's project, which was to forestall any further deterioration in the school, the little school there. The roof peak is cracked from a tree limb having fallen on the southeast corner of it, and the chimney is also in decay. The schoolhouse is one of the oldest buildings in the town. I think it dates back to 1830, and the church itself dates back to 1730. So what they'd like to do is preserve its historical significance. And they have intention to do that in 2 phases. The first phase is they want to patch the roof above the door in the southeast corner to prevent any further water damage. They want to remove all the chimney bricks, set them aside, and then in phase 2, reconstruct the chimney and put that right back again originally where it was. Second phase is really contingent on grant funding, and that's really what this meeting came down to. They want to solicit an evaluation of how to preserve the buildings, and so they need to have an authoritative figure to do that, to tell them how to go about doing it. They also want to remove all the gold paint on the outside walls and the roof itself. They want to prime and paint the whole thing and repair anything to make it more permanent. And they want to reconstruct the chimney. This led to the next discussion, which centered on the long-range plan to do all of this. They thought of how to use the buildings, too. They use the church now, we still have services there, but they wanted to use the school for possibly Bible meetings, dinners, and any other meetings that might be brought up. And they have possible historical tours of the church that take place throughout. And the cemetery is still restored, as well as the church is still restored. So they wanted to get some funding. They're looking into the Community Foundation of the Hudson Valley, Frost Funding, Thompson Trust, a local fundraiser of some kind. With all the combined parties there, they thought if they got support from all of us, they would have a better chance to get the funding. And so they had a general feeling that this is what the project was going to lead to, and they want to extend it on and bring this to the whole committee of the Rotary. And once they do that and decide what they're going to do, they're going to get back to us with a recommendation. That's really what the meeting is all about.
Thank you. Was there any talk about the cemetery? Was that?
No, it's the cemetery convention with the cemetery wasn't brought up. What was brought up, I asked them about Holmberg, and they said that there was a board of trustees that owns the church as well as the cemetery.
Yeah, that I know. I'm concerned that they're not able to take care of the cemetery. State law says when...
Well, I've got detailed notes, and the notes also say that they paid $50,000 for the church steeplers. They haven't not been able to pay. That's why they can't do anything with us.
Thanks for coming. Elaine, do you have any updates?
Well, one of them will be addressed soon in the resolution as far as the cemetery law, but yeah, actually, and also the animal control resolution.
You want to come to them in the resolution?
Yeah, because I'll be talking about that.
Joe, do you have any updates?
Yeah, the Affordable Housing Committee gave Warren a draft local law. Warren had a lot of comments, but they're basically technical comments, which the committee doesn't have a problem with. I think the next step is to give a revised draft to Warren and see if he has any remaining comments.
Can we have a draft? We haven't seen a draft.
No, you have. I sent you a draft. You asked for it last time. I sent you the same draft that I sent to Warren. It's a 36-page draft. I'm not quite sure why anybody would want it at this point, because it's going to change. But if you want another copy, like you were
Will
saying.
you just make sure you get it? Can you get it to the clerk and make sure?
Well, they say get it to the clerk, but the draft, I've gone through probably 30 drafts already. So you want the, it's kind of crazy.
I don't want it.
What?
I don't want it.
Yeah.
I'd like for you to have it. Thanks. So Warren's going to revise it and we'll
No, committee's gonna revise it and then sit down with Warren and go over the revisions. We get his input before we present it to the town board, who no doubt will consider it and have hearings and,
Thanks. Anything else? I think I updated everybody about our evaluation from the assessors. I've started the budget process. I sent out a budget letter and all of the worksheets to all of the department heads, committees, asking for it back by mid-September so that I can meet with everybody. Asking for it back at the end of August so I can meet with everybody the first 2 weeks in September to discuss any significant increases. We have a 0.063% tax increase this year, which means we can go up under $20,000. Even though we've added more properties to our roll, we can't raise the taxes. So in fact, your town taxes are going down again this year. I've asked everybody to be at current budget or under. We're going to have to make some difficult decisions, and any increases that are asked for will require a meeting by me. Otherwise, I will put it at budget or under based on the information I have. So if any of you want to reach out to your department's liaisons to make sure that those get done. The other thing is that we are not able, we've changed the way, I think Shelley explained this to you, we're only doing the budget based on past years' budgets, what was used, and that's to make it easier to do on our open RDA. It will save about a day and a half of work of inputting. So if you may need to get last year's budget to compare where we are with what you have, it's a small thing to ask just to save all the time for bookkeeping. We have a new secretary at the highway department, we have a new payroll clerk, we have a new accounts receivable clerk, and we have 2 new secretaries in building and planning. Shelley trains everybody, so on top of her job, she's training all these people and dealing with budgets. So just wanted to make you aware of that. It's a lot. She's got a lot on her plate. I think that's it for Sally is here. I think for Alan is ill today, so recreation. You had an update for us?
Yeah, I think Frank will be making a presentation.
Hello, my name is Frank Mazzarella. I'm an architect along with Crawford and Associates responsible for the design and ERP, which was sent out for the pavilion at the town park. We received 2 proposals today, and we're surprised that they were higher than what we expected. The lowest bid came in at $682,740. The next lowest, the only other bid came in at $761,381. So obviously both of these bids are above the current funding which we have, which if we include another grant which we are applying for, would be between $530,000 and $550,000. So we are seeking clarification on this now.
Seeking clarification on?
For some of the numbers from the contractors, which seem high to us, reaching out to them to see.
How much do we have allotted for this? Was it 510,000?
Well, we actually have now and currently in place the funding which has been allotted, I guess. 510, and we are now filling out a grant for the Hudson River Greenway, which has a maximum of $40,000 amount.
So you're short about 100,000 approximately.
120?
100, yes, 100 and something. So
170, 180, 172.
yeah, with the current funding we have, yes. So if we do 510, yes.
What's included in the pavilion that you're working on?
It's the restroom pavilion, so it has male and female restrooms, it has a concession stand, and it has a covered area, actually as a gateway, it's the trailhead for the whole trail system.
But the concession stand is not built out at this point.
The
It's-
concession stand includes the stub out for all of the utilities. It does not, and the sheathing, the structural portion of that concession stand and the windows and doors associated with it does not include interior furnishings or the actual equipment.
So basically, it's just, right now, it's just bathrooms?
Right, handicap accessible bathrooms, male and female restrooms. There's also some of the electrical closet that has to do with the transformers located for the lighting for the ball fields as well.
There's also a large covered area that allows for picnicking underneath or gathering for the community for different activities.
We know that we lose the county CDC, Community Development Block Grant, ADA money at the end of this year. Are we sure of that?
I'm not sure, I went to an orientation a few weeks ago, and the date that they had for the substantial completion was actually October 2017. And I know we've been using that date at the end of the year. So that's something that we've been talking about, really getting a clarification on that as well.
Well, I talked to Ann Saylor and Owen Rafter. They've been clear with me. I just want to state this, that because this is a grant that we got 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it runs out unless we're built out by January 1st. That's my understanding.
Okay.
The powers that be. So what do we do? What do we do now?
Well, there are two things. One, to get some clarification from some of the numbers that were submitted. So Frank's going to follow up with that. And the other is that we don't want to lose the opportunity for the Greenway grant, which was applied for it. And that's due September 9th. So I had asked Alan if he would ask the town board tonight for approval of submitting a grant to us with a valid gateway for this project.
We can bring that up under new business from the floor. Okay. I don't mind, that sort of protocol. Thank you. I'm sorry it came in so high.
Yeah, we are too.
Well, you've worked hard. Frank, you spent so much time on this.
We'll make it work.
Okay, let's get our business down here. I will make tab number 1. I'll make a motion for resolution 2016. Sorry, was there any more? Did anybody have any committee or is any committee reports? I think we were done, right? I'll make a motion for resolution 2016-201 for our preliminary accounts payable abstracts vouchers 869 to 981, 72 checks, I'm sorry, 73 checks. I don't have the correct.
Really?
Yes. How many checks and what is the total on that?
72, I believe.
72 totaling $73,465.48.
That's correct.
Okay. May I have a second? Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would not pay 977. This is our labor consultant. I have to call in.
I'm sorry, what's 977?
Voucher number 977.
It's
Mr. Michael Richardson.
It's check number 15578, and it's on page number 5. You don't want to pay a whole voucher?
No, I think the whole thing is $255, but I want to talk to him. We asked him a question. I don't think he responded to it, and he's charging us for it.
Do you want to hold back an amount out of that invoice, or do you want to not pay the whole invoice?
I would not pay the whole invoice.
I he's billing us here for 5 issues. I would hate to hold up his check, some of these going back to June for 1 issue.
I think we'll get a better response if we look back.
I'm not in favor of it. Does anybody else want to pull in? It's page 5, this and that.
Yeah,
Why?
he asked him a question about overtime pay, and he didn't respond to it, or he responded in a manner that was nonsensical.
Well, what he said was that he didn't agree with what you were asking for, and we needed to discuss it as a board, I think. Was it for the federal law that was passed?
Yes, there is a federal law which is going into effect. I had sent him language that we could put in a proposed resolution asking him, does it conform to the new regulation? And he didn't respond to that. We got to have an answer.
I think he has a, what he told me in passing when I was talking about something else was that it needed bigger discussion, and that what your understanding of it was not what he would recommend.
Well, then he ought to respond to the rest of us rather than having a conversation with you, because something got to get done.
Okay.
And, so if he wants to come or have a bigger discussion.
I think we need to have
If
a
you want
meeting
him
with
to
them.
draft something, but we got to have something by December, and we probably have to change some methods of paying certain people. So the sooner we get it, the better off. So how do we get it moving? I would get it moving.
Let's talk about the invoice in front of us first, and then we can come back to that.
Right.
I am not in favor.
Could I finish though, my sentence, please?
Sure, go ahead.
That the way I believe to get it moving is to not pay the bill. I called him and I'm waiting for a response.
Okay, I don't agree. Anybody else? It's a $45 charge.
Joe, do you have any reason to think he won't respond to you? Or he's always responded in the past? Maybe he was just particularly...
I don't know. It was a simple request, and I got, the response was, well, I did a draft of the revision of the booklets, and that was basically it. But we're not dealing with his revision, we're dealing with what we have.
Have you contacted him again, just to
No,
clarify?
I called him this morning. I just got back from vacation,
Yep.
and
No, I'm just trying to understand where you're at with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a call in from, he's often in Nicaragua, and, it takes time often for him to get back. I assume they'll get back. But we need a method to get this moving.
Well, I mean, I'll
If
just
we're gonna
speak
use
for
it.
myself and say as a general rule, I don't like the idea of withholding somebody's pay as a way of getting them to respond. If anything, I'd rather go to the opposite extreme and say, let's pay them, and contact them again and remind them we're still waiting for something. I just feel like withholding somebody's pay doesn't feel right to me.
I disagree with your
I understand.
approach to,
He responded tonight at 6 o'clock. What his first email said was, this was from July, it said, and we were all copied on it, this in response to the changes in the town's current policy on overtime pay proposed by Joe Gell. See below. As discussed, I do not recommend revising just one section of the town. So he did answer it. This is a pretty long email. And what he's saying was he'd like to get together with us to complete a full edit. So he did respond. And what he said tonight at 6 was, that he received a phone call from you today mentioning that he wanted to talk about his bill, and he's reluctant to correspond or communicate with you without authorization by me. So I'd say we pay him. He's always acted on it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's $45.
I again disagree that we're not gonna have.
Okay,
Could I just?
No, this is repeating it. I'd like to close it.
No,
and move on.
Elizabeth,
Yes,
I
you're
do have a right to talk.
Are you repeating yourself?
No, I am
All right,
not
then what are you
repeating
saying?
myself.
Go ahead, say it again.
What I am saying is that as a practical matter, you cannot have a revision of the town handbook by the date we gotta do something if you're gonna talk to people about changing the way we pay. So that I think we have to work with what we have, which is our current handbook. And to say that we ought to revise the handbook, it ain't gonna happen by the time that we need it. So that's why I don't think that his response is appropriate, because we're not gonna have it. Who's gonna revise all this stuff?
So Joe, are you saying the $45 is his payment for working on the handbook that he didn't do?
No,
I'm trying to
we
understand what you
pay
just said.
him
I'm
for
confused.
that. That has nothing to do with it.
So what is
The
the
$45 is to respond to the question as to whether we can use the language that I presented to him. And I would expect from him an answer saying yes, no, or here is a revision of the language.
And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand. So Elizabeth, you're saying he said no, right?
He wants to have a meeting to discuss it. It's more complicated. Joe's
So it's
draft
not a
did not.
simple yes or no
Yes,
answer?
Joe's draft did not seem to make sense to me.
So when is where is he now? Is he in Nicaragua right now?
He's here. He'll meet with us.
So why don't we just meet? I mean, I don't know why we would do something so dramatic. I mean, why not just...
Does anybody else, we've got this motion to pass our accounts receivable, our abstract. Does anybody want to make an amendment to this besides Joe? Ed? As is. So. Any further discussion?
And how do you propose to move this along? Are we going to have a meeting with
Can
him
we
at the next board
have a
meeting?
motion on the floor to pay our abstracts. What I propose to do is vote on the motion on the floor. And if you want to bring up something under new business, that's a whole other thing. We have a motion to pay our abstracts on the floor. There's no...
Ed, I can't hear you.
There is no majority to make an amendment to the abstract. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Richard, your accounts, is it payable in here? Your $482 is in here. We will be circulating a very clear policy that makes it clear that you have to get prior.
I do appreciate that, and I think there's a large need for a little more communication to members on the planning board. We tend to kind of let the committee members do what they want. We need more guidelines. We need to keep track of their time. They take these courses. It's important, certainly for me, and I know for a couple other people, that they educate themselves as we are required by New York State.
We're well aware of that. We fund to send you all to Cornell. I guess we'll have to know at budget time what it is. You know, we're cutting everything, but it's in our employee handbook, and I realize that you may not have gotten that, you know, or that members of the planning board may not have, but we will send out a policy clearly stating what needs to be done in order to get things moving.
Wonderful. And I will say, I think Mr. Gill mentioned something about, well, why should we send these people away to a course and then not get anything out of it ourselves? I am more than happy to share what I learned, because there's just so many people from all over New York State, and something I'd like to share with you as board members, not even the planning board.
Yeah, no, it's important. I mean, you know, you need to go to school. You're required to do it, and it's good.
And I'm more than happy to share that knowledge if you'd like to sit down and talk about
Is
it.
this something I said?
No, you had said there and said, well, anybody who goes to a course should really have the responsibility of coming back and educating the other planning board members, but it goes even beyond that. It goes to the board members, the town, I mean, there's some creative, great people who, with their permits and their planning departments, I mean, lots of great ideas go on these New York State things.
Also, Richard, just so you know, if there's any concise documents, they can be given to our clerk, webmaster. It can go up on our website, for information too.
Richard, I don't disagree with the thought. I don't remember saying that. But again, we have town board members who go to budget meetings, and we don't really get what is discussed there. So, yeah, it's a good idea.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And it's good to share. So, and I'd be more than happy to put my time in to share.
Thank you. As this was supposed to be on last month's abstract, it was an oversight by our bookkeeper. I think I've said before, she's training 5 new people, so it was an oversight.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion for resolution 2016-202, capital projects abstracts, 5 checks. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I will make a motion for resolution 2016-203 for our budget transfers and amendments. May I have a second? The biggest one here is the estimated revenue for our consolidated highway paved New York. It's our CHIPS hot money. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I will make a motion for resolution 2016-204 for our winter 2016-2017 farmers market contract. May I have a second?
Second.
This has been given to the neighbors next door. They're saying, thank you, this looks great. I understand that there was a problem with the heat last year, and I said to Georgia, why didn't you tell us? She's like, we didn't think to. So, we're not here to limit heat, we're just here to be mindful of what we spend. So, welcome back for another year, and let us know how we can help you. It went really well this year. I think having the chairs moved and, out, you guys are very mindful of any scraps outside, so everybody was happy this year.
Is that going to continue with the gentleman that did the setup last year?
That's between you and who you hire. That's, I think, your farm, your manager takes care of that. We have nothing to do with it. We're fine, whatever, that's your business. So the next door neighbor was very grateful that no fish water was thrown out.
Right.
I think we had a great year. So thanks, and thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having us.
Is this the same as last year's agreement?
There are a couple of changes, just the dates.
Yeah.
Just the date?
Yeah, they've added one date.
Okay, because I noticed that the first 3 are a week apart, right before Christmas.
Because Christmas and New Year, nobody comes out, so they wanted to capture this. There's like a slight change in what they want to do, and the farmers market believe that this is when people come out and need them. So
Will this conflict at all with Santa Claus? Because they use...
no, we've checked.
You check with Santa Claus, John?
We checked with what is being held. It's all fine. Santa
Those
Claus.
dates are open.
They're open on our calendar, okay. Has Santa Claus given you any dates yet?
Yeah.
They give us dates after, the day after the Santa Claus. They book it for next year. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Resolution 2016-205, engineering services for repair of cemetery wall. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
Elaine, you want to?
Yes, this is the engineering estimate, the quote that Suzanne had presented us for repair of the cemetery wall down on, Mill Road, thank you. We had so many conversations about this, but just to recap very briefly, the stones are falling all over from that wall. It's just dilapidated. So we are able to provide some town funds from the permanent maintenance fund from the money that we were able to obtain from the old account. So we agreed to use part of that, and at the same time have the the cemetery committee worked with the Friends of Rhinebeck, a nonprofit, to raise funds to get the rest. So before we can do anything to repair the wall, we have to get an engineer so that we can do the specs, the plans, and the survey. So that's what this is, it's approving the engineering services.
What other bids did we get? How many other bids?
Well, that's a good question, because I know we got 2 at least, but I only see 1 here.
The low bid is not in here,
Is there any reason why?
probably an oversight.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean?
There was this bid is around 15,000, there was another bid for 6. We got that bid in, and based on our procurement policy, we told her she had to get 2 bids. We did get a second bid in, it's in here. The low bid that came in months before is not in here.
Okay, so I would think we want to go with the low bid.
So the low bid is 6,000, is that what you're saying?
It's around that, yes.
I think, and Suzanne had explained to me when I spoke to her on the phone today, that of the 2 bids, she thought it was perfectly acceptable to use
Yes.
the lower bid. She did mention that the higher bid included more, but it wasn't necessary.
The administration and things
Yeah,
that
so I
get
mean, I don't know why we would do that.
She was very comfortable with the low bid.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not in here. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Oh, that's quite all right.
Wait, there was one other thing she asked. Do you remember? That
Let's
if
see.
we're approving it, that we,
Well, she wanted to know if we needed to wait first, because she had applied for a grant that they weren't able to get yet, but they're applying for other grants.
that we make a contingent on all funding. But if we don't get
Yes,
grants, are we still doing this? We don't know, right?
Well, we'll make it, I mean, it needs to be done, is the bottom line. They will raise the money, there's no question about it. They've got a pretty significant amount already that they've
I
raised.
have a question. You're talking about the Route 9 road or
Mill Road. Mill Road.
this is from Mill Road.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty bad. I mean, I took pictures last year and showed everybody, but
She's brought it to us.
yeah, exactly. And they have a significant amount of money to contribute toward it with our money from the permanent maintenance fund. I mean, there's no question they're going to be able to get it, so.
So it's going to be good.
I guess I want to ask,
Just one.
do you want to award the low bid, or do you want to wait until the low bid is before us at the next meeting? What do you?
Well, I don't have any problem approving the low bid because I talked to Suzanne about it, and she's the one who's the expert on this. She's been working very closely she knows all the necessary details of what they need to do, and she was perfectly comfortable. She did not feel we needed to go. I mean, it's a pretty significant amount, 6,000 to 15. The 6,000 would cover what we needed to cover, and she's. Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
How can you approve something that you don't have on a
It
piece
was
of paper?
presented
Because
to
it's
us at another
in
meeting.
let me finish. In front of you, I think.
Elaine's talking, I just asked her.
And I'll be happy to tell you why I was, Joe, because I'm perfectly comfortable saying this. Suzanne has her PhD. She's been the chair of that committee. Let me finish. If you ask me a question, at least I'll let me answer. She's been the chair of that committee for quite a long time. She works very closely with the board. She forwards us all of the information that she has, every detail. She is the best steward of the cemetery, and heaven forbid we ever lose her. So if Suzanne says to me, we have the bid, and it's a simple paperwork error, and she reviewed all of those bids, and she's been in discussion with both Elizabeth and I about the details of these bids, and let us know prior to the meeting that she actually thought going for the lower bid was perfectly acceptable, because all we really need to do at this point are the specs, plans, and surveys, which is what the lower bid covers. This other bid is significantly more and covers things that aren't necessary. So in my mind, I don't take issue with that.
I would be happy going with the lower bid. However, I'm not happy approving something where I don't know in contract language what this person is doing for the $6,000.
That's fair enough. I understand.
I think
Yeah.
I would support tabling this.
Yeah,
And
we can
Suzanne
table it.
said that
Yeah.
it wasn't time sensitive. We can bring it
Yeah.
back in 2 weeks. I think that
That's fine.
makes sense.
Yeah.
John, will you follow up and get the low bid? It was from several months ago, maybe June, for the next meeting. Is that all right with everybody? So
Yeah,
we'll table
absolutely.
this. Table. Resolution, thanks, Elaine.
Sure.
2016-206, tab 6, fall recreation programs. I'll make a motion since Alan isn't here. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, any questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I'll make a motion for Resolution 2016-207, proposed removal of street light on Hudson Street in Winecliff. May I have a second?
Second, I thought this was a very interesting
Well, you
resolution.
know, we passed a resolution before Central Hudson is changing out all the bulbs from incandescent to, thank you. And which we said we wanted to do, it saves money. There was a resident on Hutton Street who has the light right outside her house. She was very upset when they changed the bulb. She went around to all of her neighbors, they're all upset, they'd like it decommissioned. She's asking us to decommission it. There seems to be a consensus to take the light out. It's incredibly bright, it's disruptive, it's cold, they'd like it gone.
Ed, I can't hear you.
We're not considering removing.
No, this is to approve the removal.
This doesn't say to approve the removal, it's to
No, it's to
consider,
request
ensure the
the
property owners have been notified and proposed
Okay.
removal, and have had the opportunity to voice their opinion on the matter and report back to the board.
I would just add to the resolution that we ought to get the opinion of the police.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, I understand, I don't blame them for not wanting a bright light shining in their face, but I do know, as a Rhinebeck resident, that I was called by a constituent down there who had somebody vandalize her home. So having lights on the street, it is a huge safety issue, so I think that consulting the police would be a good idea. Yeah.
So we could add to the fourth whereas amendments.
We're tabling this, I think, right?
Yeah, let's talk to
Why
them.
we-
And I'll be happy to reach out to them if you'd like.
Will you reach out to
Sure.
her and the police? You want to take this on?
Sure. Who's the other one, the first one?
The woman who requested this and the police. I think we have to.
Okay, so I'll have to get the name of the woman coming after the meeting. But yeah, I'll definitely do
I
that.
guess I don't understand why we're tabling. All this says is the board requests the highway superintendent to consider removal and inform the board of his findings. We're not saying we're going to remove it or not remove it, we're just asking for opinions of the highway superintendent. So why don't we just amend it to say in the fourth whereas the board wishes to obtain the opinion of the highway superintendent and the local police? That's it, we're just asking for opinions.
Although there's one piece in here though, Joe, that concerns me a little bit about that, which says, whereas before authorizing removal of the street light. So the implication is the street light will be removed upon discussion with these people, which is a little bit different from, I think tabling it gives us an opportunity to say, do we want to suggest that that should be the case before we talk to people? I think we should do that after we talk to people, so tabling it seems pretty reasonable.
A second, tabling.
Yeah.
Thanks. Elaine, you'll follow?
Yep, I
Thank
sure
you.
will.
I think we have a couple of pieces of new business. New beeswax. Agreement, it's resolution 2016-209. I'll make a motion for agreement for animal control services. May I have a second?
Second.
Elaine, you want to take us through
Sure.
this?
So finally, I'm really happy to say we have somebody to serve as backup for Roger Newkirk, who has been our dog warden for many, many years. He does a fabulous job, but Roger works all day and doesn't get home until 6. We've had many calls from dogs that have been stray in the village and town of Rhinebeck, and it's our responsibility to even pick up the stray dogs in the village. And so what was happening was the police were being called or the vet. And so we had to find a permanent solution to this because the police aren't there to pick up dogs for us, and it costs us money if we have to deal with the vet. And then we have the issue of whether or not the owner, when they pick up their animal, is being given the paperwork that they need to be given for fines and other things, dealing with the pickup with their animals. So we finally, we have Stephanie Fitzpatrick, who was the former dog warden for the town of Red Hook. She's very, very good. She works very well with Roger, and she has offered to cover for Roger during the day so that we no longer have to worry what we're going to do about stray dogs when they're picked up. She and Roger have a wonderful working relationship. She's very familiar with the dog laws because she did this in Red Hook. So we finally have an agreement with Stephanie that she has seen and she is happy to agree to. And there are a couple small things. One is just a typo. It's just the order of things. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th whereas refers to Fitzpatrick without her first name, whereas the 6th whereas refers to Stephanie Patrick. It should be in the reverse. The first reference should have her full name, and the second reference should just be to Fitzpatrick. So that's a minor thing, but just a minor change. And then on the second page, or on the actual agreement, it said the sum of $15 per dog per incident would be payable to Stephanie, and I think $25 is a lot more reasonable for somebody having to stop their day. She works at home.
$15 was put in by Warren as a placeholder.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I told him I thought it was 50, and he heard 15, so.
Yeah, so $25 per dog is.
But she has agreed to it as is, right?
She didn't have a problem with it. But one thing I do want to say is that Stephanie would take no money to do this, quite frankly. She loves Roger, and she likes doing what she does, and she's doing this for him out of a friendship. They always helped each other, and it's the one really nice thing about small towns. Red Hook had no kennel. When she was the animal control officer up there, Roger would take her dogs to our kennel without charge, and she would help him. They developed a wonderful rapport through this, and a real friendship, a genuine friendship. She would do this for nothing, but it's not right to ask somebody to do that. It's just not. And she's self-employed, she works from home. To ask her to stop what she's doing, go out of her way to pick up the dog, deal with the paperwork, deal with the people, for $15 just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't. Even 25, but still, 25 is, so she was okay with the 15 because she would have been okay if we said 0 on here. And I told her from the beginning,
This gets us through the end of the year.
Yeah.
We can assess how it's going and deal with it next year.
Exactly, and it's the fees that she has to collect as an animal control officer more than covers what she's going to get paid. I mean, it's not as if we have to find a new budget line to pay her $25 a dog.
So let's make a motion
amendment.
to amend the resolution. All in favor of amending the resolution? Aye. Any against? Amending resolution? Abstain. Okay, all in favor of resolution 2016-209? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks, Elaine, and congratulations.
Thank you, I know this was a good one. It's fun.
But this still does not cover the village, only the village for ag and markets.
Right.
No lock-ins at the fairgrounds or anything like that.
Right, just what we're responsible for, yes, under ag and market laws.
Okay, so one new piece of business is resolution 2016-210, hiring summer camp director and assistant camp director for our 2017 camp session. I'll make a motion, may I have a second?
Second.
Alan's not here, and we have a new rec committee. Alice Cunningham has resigned effective the last day of September, and it's her and the committee's recommendation. Is anyone here from the committee that we appoint Victoria Cordesco as the camp director and Bailey Hutchins as the assistant director? Do we want to do this now, or do we want to wait? Alan's not here.
Maybe we should wait for Alan.
I talked to Alice today, and this is her recommendation.
Alan would probably support it if it's Alice's recommendation.
We had a great.
I have no opinion on it.
Right, then let's proceed.
Okay.
Alice thought that it was important that, Victoria will work with her to see how it closes out and be able to pick it up next year. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry, what do we, I forget what the motion was.
The
To hire.
Hiring.
Any opposed? So moved. I think we've been asked for one new piece of business that's to allow the town board.
Yes, I had the email to Alan about a resolution.
Alan's sick today, just so everybody knows. He called me right before the meeting. He thought he could come, he can't.
So Jack Bishop is coming, and this is a resolution that would provide us with an opportunity to submit a grant application to the Hudson River Valley Greenway.
So a resolution allowing me to sign a grant application for Hudson Valley Greenway for not to exceed $40,000 for the Thompson Mazzarella Park
Right, and it's
Pavilion.
specifically for the trailhead pavilion.
Trailhead Pavilion.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
John, you have that? Any further discussion or questions?
Because of the ethics board opinion,
Have to abstain. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
It has to be in by September 9th.
I can sign it. Carry around. Home will be back on tomorrow. Thank you again for all your work. Is there any other new business?
yeah, what is our strategy?
Oh, right.
for,
I think we
dealing-
should get a meeting with Richardson to discuss this and any other issues we have with the handbook. You know, at least let's enumerate what the issues are and go from there. Do you want me to call him and set up a meeting date?
Yeah, will this be a entire meeting, the full board, is it public,
I think
is it executive session?
It's not executive session because it's regarding a policy, not a specific person. So we need to notice this and have a public meeting, which we can do at a mutually agreeable time. I'll send out some.
Right, but I don't think at this meeting you can really discuss revisions of the handbook. There are lots of revisions, and where the thing bogged down was trying to get Shelley's time, who was extremely busy.
We're not going to have Shelley through budget season.
Right, I
Anything extra.
understand that, so what I'm saying is you're not going to be able to get comments on the entire
Well, let's
project.
agree to
You
set a
gotta
date
deal
with,
with this.
let's agree to set a date with Michael Richardson to discuss this and whatever else anybody wants to discuss with regards to the handbook. So I will contact him, find out when he's available, and email you all. Is that right? Okay. Any other new business before the board? Any public comment on non-agenda items?
I have one comment. I think it would be very beneficial to the town to invite the Conservation Advisory Board, at least a couple members, and the Planning Board, to participate as they are labeled in the employee handbook, to follow rules. They're subject to employee classification. So I think the input from them, just to make sure that they don't feel, I mean, they're subject to all rules that employees are. So from dress code to everything that's in the book. I personally saw the book for the very first time.
When were you appointed?
Pardon me?
When were you appointed to the board?
I'm 52. I can't even remember what happened yesterday. 2 years ago? 4 years ago? 7 years ago. 7 years. I was reappointed somewhere along the line. So, yes, so we need to polish a couple things and make sure that that book is distributed. But more importantly, if we're going to make revisions to this, it might be good to have some of the other board members present to say, this is okay, this is okay. I would love to see a little more of a formal process. And it would be beneficial to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there will be a formal process. We're not even at that point yet of having a draft where we've covered those things that we want to get from Shelley, the business part of it. But yeah, it is very important because it does cover appointees, and they should certainly be brought in, but at a time when we have a workable draft same thing as I view the affordable housing. You have a workable draft, then you bring it to people if it's.
But
Richard,
the initial input
I
might be
could only
valuable.
say it will be a public meeting, we'll notice it, and I'll make sure that your boards have heard about it.
Great. Thank you.
Anything having to do with us, go.
Yes. If you don't mind, sorry, take one and pass it down. Joel Tyner, your friendly county legislator. We had about 40 or 50 people here a week or two ago for a first forum I did on the anchorage and the barge issue. I'm doing a follow-up this coming Monday, that's the 29th of August at 6 p.m. at Morton Memorial Library in Rhine Cliff. And I urge people to go to riverkeeper.org because what unfortunately the industry has proposed is a radical increase in the number of anchorages and the number of barges. The tugboats have multiple crews, so this excuse about they need sleeping time is BS. And we're talking about crude oil for foreign trade. We're not talking about stuff for us locally. So I urge people to go to riverkeeper.org, HudsonRiverAnchorages.org. Also, I'm doing the 14th Repair Cafe is going to be here in this room Saturday, September 10th. Bring in your broken stuff to be fixed for free, whether it's lamps, vacuum cleaners, clothing, computers, electronics, bicycles, musical instruments. Probably going to have a site and licensed massage therapist. That's Saturday, September 10th, here in this room, noon to 4 p.m. You can go to repaircafehv.org. One of the things I handed out is community choice aggregation. Many times over the last year or two, I've been circulating these letters. This time I got 6 of my colleagues, including myself, to sign on. What people may not be aware of is I've been talking a lot about Ulster County and Citizens for Local Power. Westchester County is doing it. They're saving $4 to $5 million a year. There is no excuse for the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development to be dragging their feet, because I and other people have been pushing for a long time. We can actually be saving a lot of money and going green with community choice aggregation. It's something that perhaps the Dutchess County Association of Supervisors and Mayors or municipalities could look into. But if you go to westchesterpower.org or citizensforlocalpower.com, to me, community choice aggregation is a mother of all win-wins. The other letter that I distributed to you was, again, myself and 5 of my colleagues signed on to a letter. I distributed about heroin. The Poughkeepsie Journal, big coverage they're giving to a September 14th upcoming forum. I know for a fact there's even a guy that I used to work with a long time ago, one of his kids mixed up with opioids. The heroin epidemic is very real right here in Rhinebeck and Clinton. Actually, a number of people that I know and their families. And what they've done in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and in Cooperstown, and the Republican District Attorney in Broome County, and the Republican Sheriff in Broome County, we need to be doing here. And that's the letter that I circulated that I got my 5 colleagues signed on to. It's basically making sure that heroin addicts are guaranteed treatment instead of incarceration. Sounds simple, common sense, no-brainer, but it's not happening. The Dutchess County District Attorney is a good man, but he's fearlessly, publicly defending the practice of literally jailing 29 heroin addicts who have been charged with nothing more than nonviolent. The only other thing I would say is I urge you, please, because I've done some research on this, please check out humanesociety.org/deer. In Fripp Island, South Carolina, there was a 60% cut in the deer population. There are alternatives to deer culling. I'm not saying that you guys are going to do a deer cull, but all you have to do is look on the internet for alternatives to deer culling. They've done it in Fripp Island, South Carolina, very successfully. Gaithersburg, Maryland, Fairfax City, Virginia, and surgical sterilization of does, contraceptive PZP vaccine, and that's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other new business? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.